Business Plan Basics, prepared for and presented at the 2017 Square One Entrepreneurship Training Program. Square One is a program of the Center for Emerging Technologies. CET is an affiliate of the Cortex Innovation Community. Square One is funded in part by the Missouri Technology Corporation.
I know you guys have gone through the business model canvas and the lean canvas, and those are wonderful tools to have, certainly with respect to planning and customer discovery. I think you were talking about that, and all the wonderful things you learn there, and testing your hypotheses, knowing something about segmentation. That's all really good. Now what you want to do is take that information and document it. And the other thing I want to say is that a business plan, you know, they talk about the business model canvas replacing a business plan. I don't agree with that. I think they go together hand in hand. You're not going to go to a financial, to a banker or someone who's going to provide some financing for you with a business model canvas. It's just not going to work. They are accustomed to, most of these people are business people, and they are accustomed to seeing business plans. Now the other thing I want to say is a business plan does not have to be 35 pages. I really propose that you try to get a business plan done in 10 pages into what's called an executive summary. Sometimes, and you'll see this here too, you'll see an executive summary, they say should be 2 pages, and then that should be followed by the rest of the business plan. I am not from that school. I think you should just have an executive summary business plan, and that executive summary business plan should only be about 10 pages. The rest of that information you could put in an appendix somewhere, okay? So that's what I would suggest that you try to do. Also, before I forget, I want to let you know that the University of Missouri Columbia will offer you guys for 90 days for free a software package, and you can get that through me if you fill out these forms. It's called LivePlan. How many of you have heard of LivePlan? L-I-V-E-P-L-A-N. It's a fantastic package. Let me tell you why. If you started your business plan on Microsoft Word, you can cut and paste and put it in there. It guides you along. It's step by step. It's really a great tool. And also, the wonderful thing about it, it has obviously a marketing section, and I'll talk to you about how we can help you there too. The marketing section and the financial section are the most difficult parts of a business plan. Most people don't know where to get information on their markets. And I think you've had Michelle Sawicki here. Have you had her talk?
We didn't have her do this session, but we have provided her contact information.
Okay, so Michelle Sawicki at the St. Louis County Public Library is a great resource. Go talk to your reference librarians. They're lonely people. They want you to talk to them. They have tremendous amounts of resources, data out there. That it's not like the old days, you know, you get secondary, if you do kind of secondary research, you know, a lot of the information was a year old sometimes, like from censuses and that kind of stuff. Some of the stuff is very, very current, like from last month. That's how great this stuff has gotten. And Michelle Sawicki at the library, and Christy has provided you with that information. It's a great resource. That was the other thing I want to say, Michelle. Okay, and the other very difficult part that LivePlan can help you with is your financial projections. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. But the wonderful thing about this plan, and if you've been in business for a while, well, then you can take your historical data, input it into this LivePlan, and it will project, because if you're using, what's the name of that? That's the software, the accounting software. No, the QuickBooks. I can never remember it. If you're using QuickBooks, for example, and for your business, well, you put that data, that'll generate an income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow, and you put that data into the software package, and it will generate projections for you based on whatever assumptions you may have. So it's a very, very powerful tool, and I would really highly suggest that you, if you are going to go ahead and develop a business plan, that you ask for it, okay? Just write that down on this form. I would like to have you send me a link to this business plan. It's 90 days for free. After the 90 days, you would have to pay whatever they charge, 14, 15 bucks, 19 bucks a month. But 90 days, you should be able to, if you're good, you should be able to complete that. Okay, so this is me. I did not bring, unfortunately, business cards today, but I will, by the way, I'm going to send, if you haven't received this document, I will send you this document.
We'll take care of that.
Okay, no, this is, okay, and you can do that? Okay. So that's why I'm over at the T-Rex. And I can put this slide up again towards the end, okay? So that you don't have to rush right now to write the stuff down. All right. Here's the agenda for tonight. We're going to discuss the business plan basics, identify and discuss some of its major components, and really kind of my best part is to present features of a good business plan. And quite often, by the way, one thing that I like to do is to engage the audience in the presentation, but because of time limitations, I'm going to just be more lecturing tonight than anything else, so I apologize. I really enjoy the back and forth and the questions, and feel free to ask a question anytime. So this chart really kind of shows you what a business plan does. You know, I mean, it's documentation of your business plan. And without anything in life, if you want to be successful in life, you have to plan, right? It's the same way in business. You want to be successful in business, you should have a plan. This is why it's important. I would say that this here, to obtain financing, is probably one of the main reasons that I see a lot of my clients for when they come in to see me about helping them with their business plan. And by the way, when I say they come in to see me to help them with their business plan, I provide the structure, I ask the questions, I guide them, I mentor them, I coach them, but I don't write the business plan for them. I don't know enough about your business to write a business plan. That's something that has to come from you. However, once I'm presented with a draft plan, I look at it, and if it's pretty poor, I will try to edit it as much as I can. But again, I'm not in the editing business. So I would recommend that if you're not a good writer, get someone to help you write. Because it's so important. Later on, I'll show you. This is a reflection of you, your business, who you are. It will reflect on your knowledge, on your intelligence, on your professionalism. So you want to make sure that it's a really good document, okay? And again, I'm here to help. I'm not going to go away after this. You guys know how to reach me. And that's what I like to do, by the way. I love to help people. So I've done that about 7 times today, and it's been a good day for me. Again, it's a communications tool. You're communicating to these people, but you can also be communicating, and it's an operations guide. Let's just talk a little bit more about it. Who needs your business plan? Now, some of this is very obvious. Again, lenders and investors, other business owners, your managers, internal managers, B2B customers. Why would suppliers need your business plan? Why would they be interested in your business plan? Anyone?
They're extending you credit.
There's exactly a great answer. They're extending you credit. And you want to get the best credit terms. So if you're presenting yourself and you've got financial information there that shows tremendous cash flow, they like to see that. Thank you. Again, I'm not going to dwell on these. We're just going to go through them rather rapidly. You're going to get copies of these. So I think the rest of these are fairly obvious. Stop me. So here's what we're going to, this is what the business plan contents or outline looks like. And I've divided these into little groupings or segments. And this segment here really is the most important. This is the meat of your business plan. This stuff here is just a cover sheet. It's just the front page of it that talks about who the company is, who prepared this business plan, the date, the location of the company. That's what you put on your cover sheet. You need to have that followed by a table of contents. You are going to tell the reader what comes next, okay, just one sentence or so, and what page they're going to find it on. It's an organizational tool that's going to be very helpful for them so that they can see. Oh, by the way, and I'll hit this again, make sure you paginate, you put page numbers on your business plan. Nothing worse than not doing that. Well, there are some worse things, but I can't stand that. So here's this part we talked about this executive summary. So traditionally in a business plan, they say, put together an executive summary that's just 2 pages. And then that should be followed, and that really, executive summary summarizes all of this other stuff. Well, and then all of this other stuff should probably might take 30 pages. And then you have some supporting documents. For example, let's say you're going to you're going to, as part of your business, you're going to buy a building, and you have to make reparations to that building. You know, you got to fit it out, so to speak. And so you got to have architectural plans, some cost estimates for that. That would be a supporting document. Okay, your long statement, your financial statements, basically income statement, balance sheet, cash flow, the projections would be over here too. My suggestion on this is that you should just write an executive summary that is about 15 pages long that contains this information. Okay? Is that clear? Did I make myself clear on that? That's really, I think, what we want to do. We don't want to bore people. Okay, so I got these slides from someone else a long time ago, and I haven't had a chance. I mean, I've been fixing them as I go. So this part is going to talk about the executive summary, but it's really kind of the contents of the business plan, okay? If you get confused at any time, let me know. So typically, an executive summary consists of a mission, a description of your concept or your business model, which, you know, you've already kind of done that because you've been through this class, right? So you know what your concept is, your business model, what the company objectives are, your competitive advantage, who are the competitors, who are your customers, who are the owners, the legal structure, its location, and the financial results. Okay? Now, for those of you who already have an existing business, this can be fairly easy. If you don't, well, some of the stuff you're going to have to describe and think about it, have a vision. Because without a vision, you're really not an entrepreneur, really, when you think about that, right? That's a key component of being an entrepreneur. And I like to think of, for example, I think I've given this example before, of Christopher Columbus. We think of him as an explorer. Not that he was a great man or anything. I'm just using him as an example, okay, as an entrepreneur. And the thing about him was he did have a vision. It took him maybe about 7 years before he finally got the venture capital from the Spaniards. He had gone to France, he had gone to England. He had failed, but he kept going. He was very persistent about things, which is what you need as a business person. He was very patient. And of course, he was very proactive. But he had a vision, and his vision was to start to do what he did. And of course, the other elements in his is that besides the vision, he was able to muster the resources. He got the financing. He obviously had some credibility. He had some cred. He was already a great navigator. And he was able to essentially create a plan, implement that plan, and navigate his way over here. So that's why a vision is important, and that's why this part of the mission is also so important. Business description. Now, you guys also at this point in time should know what the business description section explains. If you can't describe your business, did you guys practice an elevator speech at all while you were here? Did you guys go through that? Yeah, so you should by this point in time know what your business plan is. So this section should not take you very long. What you do, how you do it, who you do it for, where and why you do it. So the business description contents, you should have in there what the company name is, the ownership and legal structure. The reason I've got those two arrows there is under mission statement, by the mission statement and the value proposition, since we're going to discuss that in a little bit more detail. And these things are easy. Company name, ownership and legal structure. You should be able to describe your products and services, the history of your company or its present status, where you're located, and what future plans you have. So here's some definitions of what a mission statement is. Formal summary of the aims and values of the company. Short sentence about its purpose for being. And it reveals what the company does, how it does it, and why it does it. That's really what mission statements are. Then I've provided here some sample mission statements from some rather well-known companies. Okay? That you could just take a look at and see what we're talking about when we're talking about mission statements. Again, you are going to be getting this, so no need to take any notes. I kind of like this Airbnb one, belong anywhere, you know. And you don't, I mean, these people pay a lot of money to have people come up with these things. You guys don't have those kinds of resources. So, again, I just put this up there as an example, as examples. Under the business description, you should have a value proposition and a business model statement. I am sure that it was drilled into you what a value proposition is, right? It's part of the business model canvas. I mean, that's that block, that's one of the first blocks up there that you're supposed to look at and develop. So it's a marketing statement that a company uses to summarize why a consumer should buy a product or use its service, describes how the organization will create, deliver, and capture value. That's what it is. It's a differentiator between you and your competition. It should, in your value proposition, indicate why it is that you are doing, what is the value that you are providing to your customers. So this is more stuff, I guess, more flowcharts about value proposition and business model statement. What, how unique, who, why, where, when, how it's sold. Those all go into what's known as the value proposition and business model statement. So here's some more stuff that you guys maybe have already run across this. What's the value to our customers? What problem are we trying to solve? What products and services are we offering? What needs are we satisfying? What features and benefits do we offer? And what differentiates us from the competition? Again, it's your competitive advantage. And most businesses, this idea of value proposition has actually not been formalized until relatively recently, but it's been around a long time. I mean, implicitly. Now it's become more explicit. And we're focusing more on this, just like the idea of customer discovery. I mean, people who are successful business people actually go out and figure out who are their customers. They do that, believe it or not. But many of us who are kind of neophytes in this just don't even think about it. We're going to think, just a story. For example, I coach and mentor a lot of technical people, brilliant scientists and engineers. They come to me with either an invention or a discovery, and they want to get it patented. And the very first thing I say to them is, do you have a market for this? Because you could get a patent, but if you don't have a customer, you don't have a sale. Without a sale, you have no revenues, you have no business. You have no business being in business. So that's extremely important. I mean, there's other reasons for patenting products and designing stuff and seeds or whatever it may be, but it's important to have a market. Would you not all agree? Without that market, you don't have a customer. And you have to understand that market, which is the research that we can help you with as well. So here's some value proposition characteristics. And I'm sorry if I'm being redundant. Again, this is part of it. I know you guys have gone through a lot of this stuff, but maybe there may be some nuggets in here that you hadn't thought about that might be useful for you, that you said, oh, I didn't think about that. Obviously, newness is the main thing. Uniqueness or reaches of how it reaches an underserved market, design performance, customization. You can read this. A lot, cost reduction and pricing is one of the major, I would say, differentiators that a lot of companies bring into this mix of value proposition and how it differentiates their products from others. How we're going to do something more efficiently, how we're going to reduce costs. And the business model part of this in your business description is the how-to. How will you compete? How will you use the resources? Structure relationships. Target and interface and deliver to customers. Create value by sustainable profits. I like to think of a business model, for example, the whole McDonald's, and franchising to me is a business model. It's one way of delivering a good or a service to a customer. So that is a how. A franchise would be how, which is very different than being a sole proprietor or a larger company. Okay, it's just a different way of getting your product or service to market. Okay, we'll talk about target market and customers. Am I going too fast or, okay, I'm just trying to. So there are market insights, geographic market, functional markets, industry, competitors, customers, demographics, and conditions. You should try to address these components in your understanding when you try to understand the market. You guys know what a geographic market is, right? Where you're going to be located in St. Louis, where you're going to be located regionally, nationally, internationally. What about a functional market?
A specific need. Yeah.
Specific need?
Yeah, function that you are trying to attach your market. People that wear shoes.
Okay, let's think a little bit. That's good. Let's think. So let me give you an example. So I worked for a large engineering firm here. Several companies. The company I worked for was the facilities company, and under that facilities company, we had an industrial division, we had an architectural division, which were the two major divisions we had. And the architects, they divided their markets not only geographically but also functionally. So they would do designs of buildings and construction and design build of buildings that were in an airport setting. So airports was one of their functional markets. Okay? Industrial would be a functional market. Banks, retail stores, that's what I'm talking about, function. Government sector is a functional market. It's supposed to, at a broader level, it's opposed to private sector. These are the strategic questions you need to ask yourself as you're putting together a business. First of all, does my product or service lend itself to those markets? You don't want to be everywhere, but you want to focus on what market you think will be better served by what you've got to offer. So that's why it's important to think in those terms. Again, I don't know anything specifically about what businesses you have, but I think this is a good exercise to think in those ways. Sometimes, particularly when you look at the broadest level, government versus private sector, people think, oh, I've got something that everyone's going to want, you know. Not necessarily, and that's what you got to test, and I know that that's why you guys went through this business model canvas stuff, trying to test those hypotheses. Let me tell you something. When you're doing work for the government, and the government is the largest buyer in the world of goods and services, in the world, billions of dollars, all those government agencies, Department of Defense particularly, to do business with the government, it has to be a certain kind of a breed. You know, you got to be able to know what you're doing. You want to dot your I's and cross your T's and go through a lot of bureaucratic stuff. But and the contracts are not necessarily don't necessarily have great margins. But once you get a contract like that, it's like if what you're trying to do is maintain a consistent revenue source, it's good for that. So it would be good if you have something that you could do for the government to have that. We also provide a service called Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, which if you think you're ready, you've been in business for at least 2 years, and you have something that you feel you could deliver, a product or a service that you think the government will buy from you, they call that being procurement ready. If you're procurement ready, also come and talk to me about that. I'll put you in connection with those people who could help you get government contracting. And if you're a veteran, a disabled veteran, a part of either a racial or ethnic minority that has been disadvantaged, historically disadvantaged, there are set-aside programs to try to encourage small business owners to get some of those contracts. Okay? So the market asks questions like, who are they? How many are there? How much do they spend? How often? Who makes the purchasing decision? This is really very important. What do they value? What and who influences them? Why is this important? How do they make a purchasing decision? And who makes that decision? You know, if I'm selling baby rattles or something for babies, the babies, I might think that babies are, my market, but really it's the moms and the dads, those who make those decisions, purchasing decisions, right? Makes a lot of sense. Again, when I worked at the engineering company, we were given a little guide like this, and it was like a little Bible that we had, a little testament. We had to carry that, we had to memorize it, because every time we saw a client, we would ask them these questions. Not only would we ask them about what kind of budget they had, but also who would make the purchasing decision. We wanted to make sure we were talking to the right persons in that organization. We weren't wasting their time or our time. So if I'm going to be selling engineering services to a plant, an industrial plant, I might want to be talking to the operations manager of that plant, because those are, or the operations engineer. Those are the people who make these sorts of decisions. And you need to, as you do your business, make sure you understand what that is. You guys have seen this before, right? The total addressable market, served available market, and the target market. So I'm not going to dwell too much on that either, but this is important to know. One thing sometimes you have when you're putting together a business plan or even a deck for presenting, people will say, well, the market is size X and I think we can get 7% or 3% of it. That doesn't fly. They don't want to see that kind of stuff. It's just, you don't go about estimating your market like that. Right, Harry?
Absolutely not.
So try to avoid that. But the point here is that each market estimate, as you go through this process, each market estimate further narrows the target market so that you can hone in and be focused on who it is you want to sell to. And then you can also start getting characteristics on these markets.
Please get a question.
Yeah, sure, I'm sorry.
When you're trying to figure out the size of the market, and I think a lot of people, especially in the startup community, have maybe a little more one-off or newer idea, and so you say, okay, well, this doesn't necessarily wholly exist, and so you start looking at other markets that are similar,
Right.
and you start smashing all those together, right? And you're like, okay, so now there's 150 million, but that's not the right answer.
That's not the
And
right
so
answer.
you have these answers that range from this one company has 2 million users and this other company has 100 million users. So you assume you're somewhere between 2 million and 100 million, but that's not an answer either.
No, that's not an answer.
And that's really hard to figure out what the size of these are.
It-
Some of these users are using full service.
Right, and I couldn't agree with you more. It's just not an easy thing necessarily to do, particularly for these products that are very novel. It's a very hard thing to do. You need to put some thought to it. And ultimately, I did mention this in my example of Christopher Columbus, but the other element of being an entrepreneur is taking risks, right? And in that example there, you would have to take a risk
Or make some guesses.
and make some guesses, guesstimates. Yeah, you have to. Again, and what is risk? In business, why do we, the thing about business and what you want to do is you want to minimize that risk. And how do you minimize that risk? By reducing uncertainty. And you reduce that uncertainty by getting information, becoming more and more informed. And the more informed you become, the more certain you become and the lower your risk, right? So that's really what you need to do in this process. Think about it, and eventually it's going to come down to making a decision.
Just take the lowest number of all the ways you can.
Yeah, well, you want to take a number that is conservative.
Right,
Ultimately, okay? And I agree with you. If you can find other examples of how others have done it, that's what you need to do. You need to do research. And again, I'm going back to this research part. You really need to talk to Michelle Sawicki, or if you're not located out in that area, the library here, or in St. Charles, she has a counterpart out there. Trevor, I can't remember his name, but there are these reference librarians are really good, and they have all kinds of wonderful resources, and they're free. And you don't necessarily have to rely on them. You could get a library card, and you could get access to these databases from your own computer once you get this library card. It's really, I think, a wonderful, wonderful tool that is provided for you out there. Any other questions on this? Okay. You should have, as part of your business plan, an industry analysis that talks about the economic sectors. Economic sector, what sector is it? Is it transportation? Is it agriculture? That's what we mean by sectors, government sectors, etc. Some characteristics about that industry. Is it growing? What is its size? You want to convey to the lender of this money towards you, or the investor, that this is a large enough market. So I was helping a couple of professors from UMSL, our sister organization, and these are a couple of guys who are doctors of optometry from their optometry school. We used to teach classes there too. And the guys had an invention. And it was an invention for you guys know what lazy eye, have you ever heard of lazy eye? Correcting lazy eye. And it's some kind of device, and what it was a device that would provide a better measurement than was existing then to help correct this even better. The problem was the market size. They did not have a sufficiently large market size to make this business go. And I was brought in after all of this stuff, and we said, that's really your fundamental problem. Knowing what the market size, being able to establish that, convincing your investor or the banker that this is a large enough market and that it is growing, certainly not falling back, that's what the second part refers to. Is it sensitive to economic cycles? Now we know that if you're an undertaker, we had someone here with a funeral home once. Economic cycle sensitivity, you're going to have undertakers. That's a given. There's going to be demand for burying people. Seasonality. Seasonality is so important with respect to cash flow. If you're in a construction business and the winter months come, or a landscaping business, you better have something to do during those winter months, like maybe plowing streets or whatever, lots, to offset the seasonality losses in revenue. That's extremely important, something that they look at. Any regulations or certifications, which are kind of barriers, not only barriers to entry, but once you're in there, it could be a real problem. Are there any technological changes that may be coming in the near future? And this is hard to assess. That might impact what your business is now, and that might negatively impact that business. Supply and distribution channels also, and financial characteristics. So these are the items that you want to discuss or certainly evaluate, look at in an industry analysis. How many of you did my mind is kind of here. Never mind, why am I looking at you? What was I trying to say here? Lost my train of thought. But, well, you want to do these things, and I know this will come to me eventually, but again, market analysis, industry impact, geographic market, economic, political considerations, demographics, psychographics, and competitors are, again, items you need to look at. What I was thinking of before was, how many of you have heard or have done what's called a SWOT analysis? Did you guys get introduced to that? It's important that you look at that also, and if you've done that, you might want to include that in your business plan that identifies what the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats may be, So a threat, for example, could be economic, political considerations, or any certifications, regulations, government ones that you may have to address, or barriers, of course, to entry. Competition. Determine the competitive position, evaluate the competition, estimate your market share distribution if you can, and anticipate future competition. Again, these sorts of things, you could get information on your industry and what the market, who owns the market, what is the structure of that market, who are the key players. I think you do need to describe that in your business plan. Remember that this business plan is also partly to kind of impress those who read it, that you know what you're talking about, okay? And that you know this market, and that it's been well thought out. Quite frankly, many of the folks who look at business plans, what they're really kind of looking at is they right away rush to the financial sections. And bankers land on what's known as cash flow, which one of the C's. Did anyone talk to you about what the 5 C's of lending are? If not, let me just share them really quickly with you. Character is the first one, which has to do with credit history and your credit score. You've got to have that. Those say things indirectly, certainly, about how you are able to be responsible and handle your finances. So character is very important. Collateral. Okay? Do you have any collateral? In the event of a default on the loan, the bank is going to look at something to come after. A car, a house, your third child, I don't know, whatever it may be. Capital. They want you to put some skin in the game. They want to see something in the bank or they want to see that you are committed, so committed that you are willing to also invest in this company. Okay? Cash flow. They want to make sure that you have, on a regular basis, that you are getting sufficient income, revenue stream, to be able to pay that debt on a monthly basis. There's one other C, conditions. That's the last one I always say. Conditions really refers to some of the things we talked about already. Are you in a market that's seasonal? For example, that would be a condition of the market. Are you in a market that could be impacted by economic cycles or political cycles? That's what, what's going on in that market that might be different. So those are known as the 5 C's, and bankers actually look at those 5 C's when they're trying to evaluate whether they're going to give you a loan or not. This is just a little chart that shows something about value and quality. When we think about value, is value an objective thing or a subjective thing? It's what?
Objective.
Value is objective. How many agree with value being objective? How many think it's subjective? Yes, it's more. Well, it's interesting. Why do you say you feel it's subjective? Now, don't mean to put you on the spot.
Because a collateralization or a collateral model isn't necessarily a determination of value, but more determination of whether or not it is sufficient collateral. So it's an opinion of sufficient collateral, not necessarily an opinion of what something has as a value.
Okay.
Minimum collateral.
Okay.
Louise,
Yes.
actually, I think both answers are good.
Yes. Yeah. I'm not denying. That's why I wanted you to express it.
Yeah, so in a consumer-facing business, frequently value is about things that are hard to measure, so likely to be subjective. But in a B2B business, there it's all about really being able to quantify the benefit that you're providing to the customer in order to get them to buy, I think.
Well, that's certainly true, but not every customer is going to see the same value. Not every business is going to see the same value in that product necessarily. They may be going somewhere else.
I see what you're
That's what I'm saying. So to that extent, it's somewhat subjective. But you're right. You want to quantify it as much as possible, which is what we got here. So value is really, there's some component in value that has to do with the quality. And I remember quality. Well, that's another one of those terms. But it's like they say, I hate to use this idea of that pornography that Judge says, I know it when I see it. Quality is like that too. You know it when you see it, right? And value, one of the components of value is the quality of that good or service that you're getting. And your expectation, what are your expectations? Those are things which go into creating value relative to the price of that good, that item. So is that item, so it's worth $100, another one is $50. Let's take an Accord, which is what I drive, versus an Acura. They're really essentially the same car. But people still buy Acuras because if you've got by an Acura, an Lexus, or an Infiniti, they treat you like a king or a queen. You go there, they do. It's all of these perks that you get from buying that car. But it's essentially the same car. So you as a consumer has certain expectations. You value the way that they treat you, okay? And you think that quality of all those things you're getting relative to is worth it, given the price, that price differential. I'm kind of cheap. No, I'm not cheap. It's just that I'm more practical. I'm not going to buy it. When I see something like that, I would rather stick with the Accord. You should see me drive my Accord. I've never felt like an older person. I'm like, I belong in Florida. All right, enough of this. We had enough fun with that. So types of research. There's primary and secondary research. I think you guys know the difference, particularly those of you who are in the research area. So, you know, there are, I don't need to explain primary versus secondary, right? You guys all know that? Okay, so primary, sorry, I apologize. So primary research is research, sort of like, let's say you take a survey, interview of people, it's firsthand. It's information that you get by actually going out, or if you're in the biological sciences, you're constantly doing primary research stuff. Secondary research is research that you would get from others, from research that's already published, that people have done, or other organizations have done, that you could utilize to support your plan, and your statements, and your assumptions, and your hypotheses. Okay, that's the basic difference. So a focus group, would that be primary or secondary research? Primary. Okay, good. A census document, government census document, secondary research. Okay, and there are free sources, free sources, paid sources, and what's an independent research. I would try to get as much free sources, particularly from the library or government. The problem with a lot of government documents, although there's some good stuff out there, like industry analyses. The federal government publishes some industry analysis stuff that's quite good, and it talks about the structure of the industry, but it can be a little dated as far as some of the data. It might be 4 years old, maybe. Okay, so that's why going to the library and I'm not saying that it's bad. It's better than no information. But if you need something more current, you might want to go to the library and see if you can supplement this with that. And also, it can provide a sanity check. Of course, the internet is a place to do some research. Chambers of commerce, associations, industry associations. Yeah, I'm sorry. 10 minutes, etc. Okay, so there you go. Some research sources. Thank you. RMA annual statement. That's Risk Management Association. Dun & Bradstreet, Almanac of Business and Financial Ratios, bizstats.com, that's free. And of course, the SBA.gov tools, SBA Learning Center. So why are benchmarks? So this place, you go there and you get a lot of benchmarks. You guys know what benchmarks are, right? Why are they important, a benchmark, in your industry? So let's say you're putting together a financial statement, an income statement, and you're showing me that, and you've got a restaurant, and you're showing me that you're in this restaurant, you're going to be bringing 15% net profit, not gross profit, net profit. And I noticed that I can go to a benchmark, industry benchmark, and really the average there is only 5%. So something must be wrong. Either you got a great, tremendous product, maybe you make 15% the first few months, maybe more because it's new, it's novel, but in the long run, you're not going to be making that because the data shows me that that's not what the typical net profit margin is. It's only like 5%. So if you come to me to review your income statement and I see that, I'm going to say, the banker's going to have a hard time with this number. So you need to go back and look at your revenue streams or at your costs, and you need to adjust it so that you bring it more in line with that. It could be 7%, but it's not going to be 15 or 20%. That particular industry is not known for those kinds of margins. So that's why benchmarks are important to have. And again, this is the sort of stuff you can get from the library and also from us at the university, all for free. Okay, we'll go through this. Yeah, I just want you guys to know that there's something called marketing mix. Have you guys heard of this? Product, price, place, promotion? As your marketing mix. You guys are going to get this. I only got 10 minutes, so I'm going to have to go through this quickly. Sorry. Here it is, another nice little. The product talks about the design, quality, functionality, the price, strategy, list prices, discounts. Whoa. Price, trade channels, coverage, assortments, locations, promotion. Okay? That was place. This just goes into a little bit more detail about these. It gives us an example for a restaurant. Talks about price and gives you an example for a restaurant. Sales and marketing strategies, promotion. This is an example of an actual business plan that someone gave me, who told me or told the reader how they were going to get business, what they were going to do from a promotional standpoint to get business. In your business plan, you should have stuff like this detail that you're telling the lender or the investor how you plan to promote your business. So important. You have to think about this. I think this is a good example of this guy. He started out with 2 things, and I said no. And interviewing him and coaching him, he came up with a lot more things. Okay, management and organization, particularly if you've got a small business that's in the technology field, this is extremely important. Who is on your team? Without knowing, this is what a lot of investors base their investments on. What are the credentials? Do you have any experts, in that field? And what we want for a small business, all you have to do is identify who the team is, and if it's just a lifestyle business, all you have to do is identify who the team is within the core team, and then what other resources you have out there, like who's your lawyer, who's your accountant, okay, who's your banker, where do you get your insurance from? That's all you need to list if you've got like a lifestyle business. If you've got something a little bit more sophisticated, technical, then you need to be a little bit better with that. A lot of this stuff, personnel requirements, personnel policy, compensation, I've seen that. That needs to go into an appendix. Financials. So real quick, you guys have gone through this stuff. Balance sheet, income statement, cash flow. Let me just tell you, there are 3, this is just more examples. I'm not going to dwell on this because I want to get to the end. Break-even analysis. So there are 3 statements that the bankers want to see. Income statement, balance sheet, cash flow. And they're going to want to see projections. They're going to want to see. They want to see projections. 3 years. First year by month, the next 2 years on an annual basis for each one of those statements. The software program that I talked to you about will do that for you. Typically, when you're doing a cash flow analysis, that's information that's gotten off the balance sheet and the income statement, particular inventory, also accounts receivable and accounts payable, because those are timing things, and that's what's going to determine your cash flow. If you're receiving, if your terms on accounts payable is 30 days, and your accounts receivables are coming in 60, 90 days, you're losing money. You're not getting money in time. You might show a profit, but you can go out of business simply because you're not getting enough money on a regular basis to pay the debtors. Real important. And that program that I talked to you about will help you come up with that. Break-even analysis, very quickly. The reason behind a break-even analysis that you might want to do that, and it's very easy, this explains it, is that if you're thinking of hiring someone else, you might want to know, how do I need to increase my sales to support that additional input, that additional resource? And a break-even analysis will help you analyze that. There's something else they're going to ask you for. It's a personal financial statement. And so this is a sample. Bottom up, top down. Let's just go quickly. I apologize. I know I only got a few minutes. I just want to get into this part of features of a good business plan. How many minutes? 5? 3? 2 minutes. Sorry, guys. So you can read this. Just make sure that it's professional, that your writing style is good. If you can't write, have someone write it for you. That it appears well length, that you've got pages numbered. It's judged on appearance and impacts your credibility. It's an important document. The language should be simple and direct. Every sentence should build on the other one. I hate to say this, and I don't mean this in a political way, but there's a certain person that we know who happens to be the President of the U.S. who's prone to hyperbole. You don't want hyperbole in this. You don't want to say this is the greatest, this is the most wonderfulest.
You'll love it.
You'll love it. Believe me. None of that stuff. Focus on facts, okay? And specifics. not fake news. Use business terms, explain the industry terms and acronyms. If you do have an acronym, just spell it out the first time, and then after that, parentheses, don't use any slang. And also you should write in the third person. Don't say, well, my wife and I are going to do this. No, talk about the company. The company will, okay? Throughout this document, talk about the company. It's the company, not you and your wife or your husband or whatever. Make sure it's easy to read. This is just some ideas. Format it. Make sure it's accurate, the spelling, the math. Proof your work. Give it to someone else to review, like me, or a colleague, or the wonderful people here. Okay, this is your plan. Answer these questions. Is the business idea solid? Is there sufficient market? Financial projections healthy and realistic? And that really depends also on the assumptions you use. Is key management experienced and capable? Does it explain how the investors or lenders will get their money back? Don't bore the reader, be realistic, don't confuse, be consistent, confident, don't repeat, avoid jargon, get feedback, anticipate questions, and acknowledge the competition. These are some sources of business plan templates. There's this one called referenceforbusiness.com, business plans. I recommend you're going to get this, that you go there. And also, the wonderful thing about this software package, Life Plan, it also has a link there, a tab that you can tab on and get examples of business plans, okay? Questions? Yes, sir.
Luis, how long is your presentation? How many slides?
Too many.
Well, the reason I'm asking is not just to be a jerk.
Oh, I got it.
No, my question really is, so Luis gave very good advice, which is that your business plan, if you can try to get it done in 10 pages, is great. But he probably had 30 slides.
Yeah, that's,
So
go ahead.
it's a very, very complicated, difficult thing that you're trying to do. And it's not impossible to do. It's just all about being super succinct and clear. Because I think there's a famous quote Winston Churchill said once to a correspondent, I didn't have time to write you a short note, so I wrote you a long one, right? So easy to write a long, meandering business plan, really tough to write a crisp 10-page one. And
Yeah. No, that's very.
There's a lot of really.
There's a lot of information in here.
Slides. Boil it down to something crisp.
Yeah, and the other thing is, this is usually a presentation that I use this for presentation, and usually I'm asked to present this in 2 to 3 hours in the context of a give and take, okay? So what I've tried to, and I've gotten through this a lot more quickly before. I don't know what's happening. I'm getting slow with my age, I guess. But anyway, the main takeaways, as Harry said, be concise, cogent, terse, whatever way you wanted it. Go look, get resources. You're not in this alone. Go get help from the library, from the university. Don't pay for anything if you don't have to. You guys are all small business people, or I should say business people with small businesses. And because of that, you need to watch your money, you know. So this is your tax dollars at work. Take advantage of it. And again, thank you so very much. I really appreciate it. The other thing I was going to ask you, if you could just do this customer satisfaction thing for me and then return those. You could just pass those to the end. Pass the other forms to the end of the row. And thank you so very much for your attention. I appreciate it.